What if I told you that every smile, every hesitation, every harmless question someone asks you is a confession, not a slip of the tongue, not an accident, a confession? The truth is, people are constantly leaking who they are. They can't hide it. And if you knew exactly what to look for, you could read anyone instantly, friend, enemy, lover, boss, and know what they want, fear, and hide before they say a single word. Nietzsche once said, "There are no facts, only interpretations." But here's the twist. Most people have no idea how to interpret the human mind. That's why they get manipulated, lied to, and blindsided. Today, you won't be most people. You're about to step into the psychological X-ray vision Nietzsche hinted at. 18 raw truths that expose human nature in ways you can't unsee. But be warned, once you learn these, you'll never see people the same again. And they'll never be able to hide from you. If you want to read people instantly, stop listening to what they say and start watching how they treat those they don't need. Most people can maintain a facade when speaking to someone whose opinion matters to them. They will flatter, smile, and nod because there is something to gain. But the truth of a person's character is revealed in moments when they believe there's nothing in it for them. How they treat a server at a restaurant, a cleaner in the hallway, or a stranger who can't benefit them. This is the unfiltered version of who they are. When there's no incentive to perform, the mask slips. Their tone becomes sharper, their patience thinner, their kindness optional. That's when the real self steps forward. This is not just about manners. It's about a person's core value system. If someone only shows respect upward but never downward, they're not respectful. They're strategic. And strategic respect has an expiration date. The day you no longer serve their interest, that respect vanishes, and you'll see the same coldness they once gave to others. This is why observing behavior toward the powerless is essential. It tells you how you'll be treated when the balance of power shifts. Most people have been taught to judge others by their words, their confidence, their outer polish. But this creates a dangerous blind spot. Words can be memorized. Smiles can be faked. But spontaneous behavior toward the overlooked cannot be rehearsed. It slips out without warning, and that slip is pure truth. If you train yourself to catch it, you'll never be blindsided again. When you apply this mindset, you stop falling for the surface image and start detecting the deep patterns that actually matter. You gain a filter that instantly separates the authentic from the opportunistic. You'll approach relationships, business, and trust with a sharper instinct. The power here is not in judging people harshly, but in protecting yourself with clarity. Once you start seeing this, you can't unsee it, and that's the point. It's not just about reading people. It's about refusing to be deceived by the act they put on for the world. Over-talking is one of the clearest signs of insecurity, yet most people misread it as confidence or enthusiasm. They assume that someone who dominates a conversation must be in control, must know what they're doing, must be powerful. But real power doesn't need to prove itself. Real power doesn't rush to fill the silence because it understands that silence is not a weakness, it's a weapon. Those who speak less aren't disengaged, they're calculating. They are weighing every word like currency, aware that scarcity creates value. When you encounter someone who can sit in silence without scrambling to fill it, you are standing in the presence of a person who knows their worth. People who flood the air with words are often trying to cover up the fact that they're unsure of themselves. They feel the quiet as a threat, so they talk over it. It's like throwing paint over a blank canvas out of fear that someone might see the cracks in the wall behind it. The irony is that the more they speak, the more they reveal. The insecure person doesn't realize they're giving away their anxieties, their doubts, and their need for validation with every unnecessary sentence. The quiet, on the other hand, is magnetic. When someone holds back, they create tension. They make others lean in. They become the one everyone listens to, even before they speak, because people instinctively sense that their words will carry weight. The less they say, the more they force others to fill in the gaps, and in doing so, they control the rhythm of the interaction. This is not manipulation, it's mastery. It's the ability to let others expose themselves while you conserve your own energy and protect your own position. This is why you must learn to value your own silence. Stop rushing to prove you belong. Stop thinking you need to be the loudest voice to be the strongest presence. Power is not in volume, it's in control. When you can stand in a room, listen carefully, and choose your words with precision, you signal to everyone that you are not desperate for approval. You are there by choice, not by chance. The shift happens when you stop fearing the pause. In conversations, moments of quiet are not awkward. They are opportunities. Opportunities to observe, to study micro-reactions, to see who gets restless and who stays calm. Opportunities to gather information without revealing your own position. If you train yourself to embrace these moments, you will notice something extraordinary. People will start to hang on your words because they know you don't waste them. So the next time you feel the urge to over-explain, to justify, to fill every empty space with sound, don't. Let the silence breathe. Hold it like a blade and watch how the energy in the room shifts in your favor. Speaking less doesn't mean knowing less. It means knowing exactly when your voice matters most. That is the mark of true strength. Anger is not the wall people think it is a window. Most see anger as a barrier, a defensive force that pushes others away and hides what lies beneath. But in reality, anger is one of the most revealing emotional states a person can enter. It strips away politeness, calculated composure, and rehearsed words, leaving only raw instinct. In that moment, the truth they've been trying to control bursts through. You can see what they value, what they fear, and where they feel most vulnerable. Every flash of irritation is a crack in their armor, and if you're paying attention, you can look straight through it into the core of who they are. When someone reacts with disproportionate rage to something small, it is rarely about the surface issue. That outburst is almost always connected to a deeper wound, an insecurity, a past betrayal, or a belief about themselves they can't face. Anger is a spotlight on these hidden places. People try to mask it with stories about why they're upset, but those stories are just smoke. The real fire is somewhere much deeper, and it burns with the truth they don't want exposed. If you can train yourself to stay calm in the presence of anger, you can learn more in those few heated moments than in hours of polite conversation. The mistake most make is taking the anger at face value, reacting to the noise instead of reading the signal. They fight back, get defensive, or retreat, missing the gold in front of them. But when you learn to watch instead of react, you notice the patterns. You see which topics ignite the spark, which words make them flinch, which situations they cannot handle without losing control. Those patterns tell you what truly matters to them, what they're desperate to protect, and where their identity feels most threatened. This doesn't mean anger is inherently bad. It's simply unfiltered. For someone who wants to read people instantly, anger is like seeing a movie without the special effects. It's raw, unedited, and brutally honest. That's why the most emotionally intelligent people do not fear it. They lean in, study it, and file away what it reveals. When you can do this, you hold a kind of psychological advantage that most never even consider. Internalizing this truth changes how you navigate relationships, negotiations, and conflict. You stop being thrown off balance when someone explodes. Instead, you shift into observation mode. You start asking yourself, what does this reaction say about them? And what truth are they trying to hide? You use their anger as a map, guiding you to the exact points of weakness or passion that define them. The real mastery here is in staying grounded while others lose control. You do not absorb their chaos, you analyze it. You take the window they've opened and look straight through to the truth. And once you've seen it, you will know exactly how to respond because you'll be dealing with their reality, not their performance. Criticism is one of the most misunderstood forms of communication, and because of that, most people miss the truth it carries. On the surface, criticism looks like judgment, a dismissal of an idea, a rejection of a choice, or a disapproval of a person. But beneath that surface, something far more revealing is often at work. People frequently criticize what they secretly desire, admire, or fear they cannot have. Their harsh words can be an echo of their own longing, disguised as rejection to protect themselves from vulnerability. When someone attacks a trait in you, it can be less about you and more about their relationship with that trait inside themselves. Think about how often people belittle ambition, beauty, wealth, or confidence. If they truly didn't care about those things, they would ignore them. But their attention, especially when it's negative, is a sign of inner conflict. criticism becomes a shield. It lets them stand at a safe distance from what they want but feel is out of reach. They dress their desire in disdain because admitting the truth would mean confronting their own limitations, insecurities, or regrets. This is why criticism is often a confession, one that's so subtle most people never notice it. When you start seeing criticism this way, your emotional response to it changes completely. Instead of shrinking under someone's negative words or letting them trigger self-doubt, you step back and observe. You ask yourself, what in this person's world is being touched right now? What need, dream, or pain is this comment really about? You stop internalizing their words as an accurate reflection of your worth and start treating them as data, clues about who they are and what they're wrestling with internally. This shift is powerful because it removes the sting from criticism and replaces it with clarity. You no longer react defensively or carry resentment. You see that their words are less about your truth and more about theirs. And when you see this, you gain the freedom to choose your response intentionally. Sometimes that means addressing their comment with calm strength. Sometimes it means ignoring it entirely. Sometimes it means using the moment to better understand how they operate and where their motivations lie. By internalizing this perspective, you also become less afraid to take risks or stand out. You stop living for the approval of others because you understand that disapproval is often just a distorted form of recognition. The more you provoke criticism, the more you're touching something significant in others, something that matters enough to stir a reaction. Instead of avoiding this, you can embrace it as a sign that you're having an impact. Once you recognize that criticism can be a mirror reflecting someone else's inner world, you stop letting it define you and start letting it inform you. You read between the lines, see the truth behind the mask, and use that knowledge to navigate people with sharper intuition and unshakable confidence. That is how you turn judgment into insight and insight into power. Before words even leave the mouth, the face has already told the story. Every human being carries a truth teller just beneath the skin. Micro-expressions, those fleeting flashes of emotion that erupt before the brain can disguise them. They are unfiltered, involuntary, and brutally honest. In less than a second, a raised eyebrow can betray skepticism, a tightened jaw can reveal suppressed anger, and a subtle curl of the lip can expose contempt. These signals are so quick that most people miss them. But if you train yourself to see them, you gain an almost unfair advantage in reading others. The reason this matters so much is because people's words are often strategic, but their micro-expressions are instinctive. Words can be rehearsed, planned, even outright fabricated, but the face reacts faster than conscious thought. It responds to reality, not to the story someone wishes to project. This means that while someone may claim they're happy for you, their fleeting flash of envy says otherwise. While they may promise trust, the subtle flicker of fear in their eyes tells you they're holding something back. These moments are gold for anyone who wants to understand the unspoken truth. Most people live blind to this because they've been trained to focus on verbal language. They listen for meaning and tone and choice of words while ignoring the silent broadcast happening inches away. That's why lies slip past them, why they get blindsided in relationships or business. They've only been reading half the page. The other half is written in muscle twitches, eye movements, and shifts in micro-tension that the untrained observer never sees. Once you start noticing these signals, it's like someone has handed you the director's cut of human interaction, complete with the behind-the-scenes footage. The key is presence. You cannot pick up on micro-expressions if you are distracted, thinking about your next response, or staring at your phone. You have to be fully engaged in the moment, watching with a soft focus that takes in the whole face, rather than locking onto a single feature. With practice, you begin catching that flicker of surprise that contradicts their calm words, that micro smile that gives away their satisfaction, or that instant of disgust they try to smother. Each is a breadcrumb leading to the truth they're not ready to say aloud. Internalizing this changes the way you trust, negotiate, and connect. You stop taking words at face value and start weighing them against the silent signals. You can spot when someone's interest is genuine or when their agreement hides reluctance. You can see the exact moment someone checks out of a conversation or lights up with hidden excitement. This is not about paranoia. It's about precision. When you learn to read the face before the voice, you start living in reality instead of illusion. You stop being fooled by performance and start responding to truth. And once you can see the truth the instant it appears, no one can manipulate you without you knowing it. That is the real power. When someone keeps emphasizing a certain quality about themselves, repeating that they are honest, loyal, humble, fearless, it's rarely because they are overflowing with that trait. More often, it's because they fear being exposed for lacking it. This is the phenomenon overcompensation, and it is one of the clearest psychological tells a person can give you. People mirror what they most want you to believe, hoping that by projecting it loudly enough, it will drown out the truth they are trying to hide. It is not always conscious deceit. Sometimes it is an act of self-persuasion, as if saying it repeatedly will make it real. But for the trained observer, it is a glaring signal of where to look deeper. This happens because human beings are deeply invested in managing how others see them. We all want to control the narrative of our identity. But when there's a gap between the image we want to project and the reality we know inside, tension builds. That tension leaks out through exaggeration. The dishonest person insists on their honesty. The insecure person talks endlessly about their confidence. The disloyal person makes dramatic promises of loyalty. They build verbal armor around their soft spots, but that armor ends up highlighting exactly where they are vulnerable. Most people take these claims at face value, thinking, why would they keep saying it if it weren't true? But once you understand this pattern, you stop being fooled. Instead of being reassured, you become curious. You begin asking yourself, why does this person need to prove this so badly? What would happen if they didn't? That question takes you beneath the surface and into the realm of truth, where their real motives and fears live. The danger of ignoring this tell is that it leaves you open to manipulation. People who overcompensate know, consciously or not, that repetition works on those who don't think critically. If they declare something enough times with enough emotion, they can bypass your doubt and implant belief. But once you become aware of the tactic, you stop letting their repetition hypnotize you. You recognize it as a signpost pointing to the very area they don't want you to examine. This is not about cynicism, it's about clarity. Not everyone who speaks about a quality they value is lying about it. But when the insistence becomes constant, when they bring it up without reason, when it feels like they're campaigning for your trust rather than earning it through action, that is when your instincts should sharpen. Words are only the surface. The truth is in the patterns. Internalizing this principle changes your relationships, your business dealings, and your ability to protect yourself from false appearances. You stop letting people's self-advertising dictate your perception and start reading the deeper cues they can't control. You understand that the loudest declarations often hide the quietest truths. And when you can see that gap between performance and reality, you hold the power they hope you'll never have, the power to see them as they truly are. Words can be beautiful, persuasive, even hypnotic, but they are also the easiest part of human behavior to fake. Actions, on the other hand, cost something. They require energy, sacrifice, and consistency. This is why actions are the truest currency of character. Anyone can say they will be there for you, but showing up at 3 a.m. when you call, that's a different story. Anyone can promise integrity, but living by it when it costs them money, status, or comfort is where the truth emerges. If you want to read people instantly, you must learn to value patterns of behavior above all verbal declarations. The reason this principle is so powerful is because actions bypass the mask people wear. A person can rehearse words, rehearse a smile, even rehearse an apology. But their choices, especially the ones made under pressure, reveal their default operating system. They may claim to be generous, but do they give without being asked? They may promise loyalty, but do they defend you when you're not in the room? They may declare ambition, but do they take daily steps toward their goals, even when no one is watching? The consistency or inconsistency between what they say and what they do is the ultimate lie detector. Most people get deceived because they fall in love with words. They hear what they want to hear and stop looking for proof. This is dangerous because skilled manipulators know exactly what to say to earn trust without ever having to back it up. They rely on your willingness to believe in declarations instead of demanding demonstration. When you shift your focus to actions, you immediately break that spell. You stop being impressed by promises and start being impressed by performance. This is not about mistrusting everyone. It's about holding reality above illusion. When you anchor your perception in what people actually do, you begin to see them clearly. You notice the friend who only calls when they need something. You notice the colleague who talks about teamwork but only pushes their own agenda. You notice the partner who says they love you but never makes the effort to nurture the relationship. These observations are not negative. They are liberating. They free you from confusion and false expectations. Internalizing this truth gives you a sharper filter for your time, energy, and trust. You stop being swayed by charm and start rewarding consistency. You set a standard in your life that words must be matched by behavior before they are believed. And here's the empowering part. You also hold yourself to the same standard. You stop talking about your values and start living them, knowing that the most powerful form of influence is example. When you adopt this mindset, reading people becomes second nature. You see through empty talk, you recognize genuine alignment, and you surround yourself with people who prove their worth through action. That is when you stop being a passive listener to promises and start being an active judge of truth. And once you live this way, you can't go back. Every choice a person makes is driven by one of two forces: the pull toward power or the push away from fear. Strip away the layers of reasoning, excuses, and justifications, and you will see that every yes and every no can be traced to one of these primal motivators. Power seeks expansion, growth, influence, and control over circumstances. Fear seeks safety, avoidance of loss, and preservation of the familiar. If you can identify which of these forces is driving someone in any given moment, you can predict their next move with startling accuracy. This is essential because most people take decisions at face value, assuming they are purely logical. They hear someone say they made a choice for practical reasons or because it felt right and accept that answer without looking deeper. But human beings are emotional before they are rational. Logic is often just the story we tell ourselves to justify the emotional impulse that came first. The person who chooses a stable but uninspiring job may say it's about responsibility, but if you look closer, it's often about fear of risk. The person who leaps into a high-stakes opportunity may say it's about passion, but it's often about the drive for power and growth. When you read decisions through this lens, people become transparent. The friend who declines a new relationship after being hurt in the past is operating from fear, no matter how much they talk about not having time. The competitor who aggressively invests in their brand is moving from a place of power, seeking to dominate their space. Neither force is inherently good or bad. It's the balance between them that defines a person's trajectory. Too much fear leads to stagnation. Too much hunger for power can lead to reckless destruction. Understanding this also gives you an incredible edge in influence. When you know someone is operating from fear, you can frame your ideas in ways that offer safety and reassurance. Showing them the risk is control. When you know they are motivated by power, you can present opportunities that highlight growth, challenge, and influence. You stop selling ideas the same way to everyone and start tailoring them to the invisible current that actually moves them. The deeper value of this principle, however, is in turning it inward. When you begin to ask yourself whether your own choices are born from fear or power, you uncover truths about your life you might have avoided for years. You see where fear has kept you small, where the desire for control has pushed you forward, and where you've mistaken one for the other. This awareness allows you to shift consciously to making more power-driven decisions, choices that expand your life instead of shrinking it. Once you train your eyes to spot this in others and in yourself, your perspective changes forever. You stop being surprised by people's actions. You start predicting them. And you learn to choose over and over the path that leads to growth rather than the one that merely protects you from loss. That is how you step into mastery. The human voice is often the focus of attention, but in truth, the eyes are the more reliable messengers. They are the one part of the body that resists complete control, even under deliberate effort. When someone speaks, their words may be calculated, but their eyes are broadcasting a parallel conversation, one they cannot fully script. A fleeting dart to the side can signal discomfort. Prolonged, unbroken eye contact can be an attempt to assert dominance or mask uncertainty. A momentary widening of the pupils can reveal excitement or attraction before the mind decides whether to allow it. When you learn to read these silent cues, you begin hearing the unspoken dialogue that runs beneath every exchange. The reason the eyes are so telling is because they are wired directly to our emotional and physiological responses. While a person can force a smile or rehearse a line, they cannot stop their eyes from reacting to surprise, fear, or interest without years of intense training. And even then, the truth slips through in micro movements. These are the moments that reveal whether someone truly agrees with you, feels threatened, or is hiding something. You can hear them say yes while their eyes tighten in hesitation, or watch them claim indifference while their pupils betray curiosity. Most people overlook this because they're too busy listening for verbal cues. They wait for what is said, hoping the meaning will be clear, not realizing the clarity has already appeared in the eyes before the sentence is finished. This blind spot allows deception to thrive. It's why a person can smile and reassure you while planning something entirely different. And you believe them because you never checked the signal their eyes were already sending. Once you start observing, you realize how much truth you've been missing. The eyes also reveal the balance between authenticity and performance. When someone is speaking from genuine conviction, their gaze is relaxed and fluid, their eye contact natural. When they are trying to sell an image, their gaze becomes either too fixed or too evasive, as if they are checking themselves in real time to see whether you are buying the act. Recognizing this difference allows you to separate sincerity from pretense without the need for confrontation. Internalizing this skill shifts your entire approach to human interaction. You become less reactive to words and more attuned to the truth behind them. You start identifying when someone's interest is genuine or when they're pretending to agree while mentally withdrawing. You gain the ability to adjust your strategy in real time, whether that means challenging them, offering reassurance, or withdrawing entirely. The power of reading the eyes is not in catching people out. It's in navigating reality with precision. You are no longer living in the version of the conversation someone wants you to see. You're living in the actual one. And once you can read the eyes, you carry a private key to understanding people in a way that feels almost like seeing into their mind. That is a skill no one can take from you.